So I would love, actually, I wanted to go there. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved. People may know that, before you were the TV host, you were a spokesperson and an advocate, particularly around juvenile justice issues. So tell us about how you got involved in politics in the first place. And did you ever see yourself ending up where you are now? I'm so curious. Was this the end goal all along?
When I was like 8 years old, my mom said that I used to like grab a spoon or a pen or whatever was around and pretend to be a news anchor. Funny enough, and my news name was Donna Burns. So I was Donna Burns reporting live. I don't know where Donna Burns worked. I don't know where she went to journalism school, but she was a reporter, honey. Now I like to say I don't have to play Donna Burns. I get to be Symone Sanders Townsend. But I'm from North Omaha, Nebraska. So shout out to the Midwest, okay? I'm a strong advocate for people getting engaged who are not from the coast. Okay, no shade to the East Coast and the West Coast, but the Midwest, like the South, does have something to say. So I was an intern, actually. I got an intern with my mayor's office. It was then Omaha Mayor Jim Suttle. I'll never forget. He just celebrated a big birthday, by the way. And the day that my internship started, I was a communications intern. There was an effort to recall the mayor that started up. Exactly. And for folks out there that don't know about the recall effort, in Nebraska, you have to have two elections. One, if the municipality wants the recall to happen, so they vote yes or no. And if they vote yes for the recall, then you have another election on if they actually want to recall the elected official. So after my internship, I actually went to volunteer on the mayor's effort to beat the recall. And he won. Okay, but he lost re-election 2 years later because if they're trying to recall you in the middle, the writing is on the wall. And as a part of that effort, I met these guys that owned a political consulting firm out of Tennessee. But Mayor Suttle's team had hired them to organize North and South Omaha, which were the predominantly African American and Latino parts of the city. So after, I made myself available. So if they needed coffee, I got them coffee. My mom had been very involved in the community. She was a wedding coordinator for the, big local church, and she was everybody's seamstress. So she would take me at all the meetings and places. So I got to know a lot of people growing up, my sister and I. So I knew, I knew people, I could get them spades, we get them connected. I pulled out my friends from college to be volunteers. So afterwards, they let me continue to work with them. And that's actually where I got a lot of my political experience. I didn't know, in some places, judges are elected. Well, in Nebraska, judges are appointed, but it wasn't until I worked with this firm that I found out that judges were elected. So I worked on some judges races in Tennessee specifically and in North Carolina. I did stuff on reservations, right? They brought me along with them when they would do candidate consultations. I did state legislative races across the country. They would not pay me what they should have. Now, in retrospect, okay. But I appreciate Robert and Chris for exposing me because that's where I got the bulk of my political experience. When I moved to DC, I worked for a consumer advocacy think tank in the global trade division. If anybody knows Public Citizen, I used to work for Global Trade Watch. Now Global Trade Watch is no more. Lori Wallach started her own thing, my old boss. But that is where I knew nothing about trade. But Maxine Waters told me she would not hire me because I didn't have any technical writing experience. So I thought there's nothing more technical than global trade. So I went and I did that. And that's where I got introduced to this coalition building, federal government, DC, like campaign world. That's where I learned about Bernie Sanders and all these other things. But I fundamentally believe that local politics is, I wanted to be a city council person. Before I moved to DC, like I was struggling because I was like, I was going to run for city council. I've been shadowing my city councilman regularly. Yes, his name was Ben Gray at the time, District 2, North Omaha. And Ben Gray was going to retire. And I was seriously considering running for Ben Gray's seat. And I'll just never forget, I was on a flight to DC because I was working for, in my, pastime that I apparently had. I was a juvenile justice advocate, as you mentioned, and I sat on the board for the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. I was the national, at the time it was the national youth chair, but we changed it to Young and Emerging Leaders because youth is the size on a t-shirt. And I'm going to go to my grave railing against the term youth when it comes to this political. But I'll never forget, I was on this plane and I was sitting next to this, he was just young, suave, GQ looking white boy. He just looked great. And I was like, what do you do? Because what in the world? And he told me he was a consultant and he flew all around and he was just telling me about his like escapades. And I'm just like, this sounds amazing. And I thought, I don't think city councils are going away tomorrow, but my opportunity to like broaden my aperture will not always be there. And so if I'll try this thing, if it doesn't work out, I can always go back home because I love my community and my community loves me. And I have not had the pleasure of going back home because life has continued to work out.